Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is The Story I'm Telling Myself, a podcast about uncovering the beliefs that hold us back and rewriting them with truth, courage, and clarity. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. It's Monday, and here you are with us at The Story I'm Telling Myself. And I'm telling myself every Monday, Monday is a great day because I designed my Monday to be a great day. I have the ledge at 12:30 every Monday, which is an opportunity to just be in conversation, and that matters to me. So I hope you're finding something that matters to you to make every Monday a great one too. And today you can count that as being a part of the story I'm telling myself with our amazing guest, Bonnie Low-Kramen. Bonnie, welcome. Please tell everybody who you are.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Rita. Thanks for having me. And congratulations on this podcast on your first season. I think you're doing great work. And
Thank you.
My work is training high-level executive and personal assistants all over the world. And I've been doing that for about 14 years. Prior to that, I worked as the personal assistant to Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis. And I did that for 25 years. And from that experience, wrote Be the Ultimate Assistant and wrote Staff Matters. What's also true is that I'm a woman who divorced an abusive husband after 27 years of marriage. And so my most valued value in the world is freedom, the freedom to be who I am. I've reconnected with my high school boyfriend after not seeing him for 26 years. And we are now together and happy, and we are living proof that, you can get it right the second time around. So together, we've got 7 grandkids. So I'm combining work and life is very full. Let's put it that way.
I love it. BonnieLow-Kramen.com is Bonnie's website where you can connect with her. And she would also love to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, you should be following Bonnie. She gives some wonderful content because she's on my follow list. Bonnie Low-Kramen, again, is how you're going to find her at LinkedIn. And a mutual friend of ours is Sharon Summerfield.
Yes.
It's so funny because Sharon was posting stuff from you, Bonnie, and then you and I ended up on Truth, Lies, and Work in the same episode. And I was like, Bonnie Low-Kramen, why do I know that name? And then I was like, oh, Sharon reads her books and talks about her. And so, Sharon, we're so happy that you are joining us today. And thank you for coming
Sharon.
back. It's good to have you with us. So you're going to talk with us today, Bonnie, about something that is common for or way too many people. It's not all of us, but it feels like all of us, the way we talk about it today is burnout. In our inability to set clear and appropriate well-being style boundaries for ourselves when it comes to how we define ourselves, our role and our responsibilities in the workplace. So step our listeners into the story with you. Tell us, give us set us up. What's the situation that you're in, and talk to us about the level of commitment that you're bringing to your job.
Yeah. Well, the 360 view for a sec is the idea that I thought that I was indispensable at work, that they could not live without me. And what
says every person who's ever suffered burnout, Bonnie.
And as I've traveled the world, I see that is very common, especially among women, that we actually, truth be told, we want to be needed. So, in my work as a celebrity assistant, it was very demanding work. And there were whole years when I didn't even take a vacation because the price to be paid before you leave on a vacation is very high. And then the price you pay when you get back. But this particular year, when my son was 13 years old, I was living in New Jersey, and we decided to take 5 delicious days and go on a trip to Williamsburg, Virginia. Not a very glamorous.
You're not even going to Hawaii
No, just a road trip.
London, England, or some like big fancy.
I couldn't take that much.
Colonial Williamsburg.
But we planned this trip to get away, my husband, my son, and myself. And it was a killer before I was leaving, and I was tired, and but I did it. I got everything done, went home, and I was packing for me, for my son. You all know how it is. And as I was packing, I felt myself getting hotter and hotter and hotter, but I powered through. And I got in that car and everything was there. And I was just very quiet on the way. And I had the air conditioning on. And it was a 4-hour trip. And by the time we got to Williamsburg, Virginia, and we got into the hotel room, I was burning up. And I turned to my husband and my son and I said, I think you have to take me to the hospital. And they actually didn't question me because I must have looked so awful. And in the hospital, they did x-rays and they came back to say I had double pneumonia. And I will never forget, I had 104 fever and I was frightened. And I'll never forget the doctor who came to talk to me with the diagnosis. And she looked me straight in the face and she said, you really need to pay attention here. She said, you don't catch pneumonia, you develop pneumonia. Meaning, she said, are you burned out? Are you stressed? Have you been sleeping? Have you been eating? Have you, what's your situation? Because I must have looked just awful. And that was my wake-up call. That was a wake-up call to understand that the work was always going to be there, but my life was worth more than this. And so I ended up having to stay in a hotel room for the next 2 days, taking heavy duty antibiotics while my son and husband enjoyed a couple of days of vacation. And fortunately, I was able to join them later. But it was a real lesson in that story that I told myself that they could not live without me. And actually, they could. And they would, and that I wasn't going to get fired, and there weren't going to be, that I hear from so many women and men who choose not to take a vacation, and I will never let that happen again.
I can relate to this in a different way. I didn't end up in a hospital sick, but I worked for a company that went through a huge reorganization. And in the reorganization, I got assigned into a newly formed work group with a new boss who did not like me. He was very, very clear that he did not like me. And, I was like, I've always been one of those people that like, I just double down. I will prove you so wrong, you'll eat your words kind of person, right? So I'm in this job, and in this job, I'm inside of an organization, but I'm basically a traveling consultant. So every week, I was flying up to Chicago and working in the Chicago office for 2 to 3 days a week, and then flying down to Florida and finishing out the week and then flying home. And I did that. I stayed in that job for about 18 months, but somewhere around about the 13th, 14th month, my husband and I took a 2-week vacation. And so I left, we went to Europe to visit friends. I came back and it's a perfect, I always know it's a good vacation when you come back and you can't remember anything. Like, what was I working on? What was so important? Like, that should always be your goal. Friends, that should always be your goal, to disconnect so well that you really have to have somebody tell you how to step back in. Then you've done it right. But I had that moment, but I came back in and I got on the plane and I flew to Chicago and I called my husband in that night from the hotel, and I was just in tears. I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this sucks. Like, as soon as I knew I was going to be back on this gerbil wheel, and You know how it goes, Bonnie. I mean, it's not like your flights go on time all the time. It's not like you don't end up with weather delays and sitting in the airport for hours. And so I'm living away from him. All we have are our weekends together,
Right.
right? And we're living apart otherwise, and I'm living out of hotel rooms. And I'm thinking I'm just not getting paid enough money. There's not enough. And oh, by the way, my boss has already decided I suck, right?
So what'd you
But
do?
I stayed in the job, right? And I stayed, and I knew I came back from vacation. I'm like ugly crying every night, just like, why am I doing this? I'm
Wow.
so unhappy. And I knew, I told in the back of my head, I said, it will only be another week or two, and you will just be right back on it, and you'll just keep doing it out of habit. You'll just fall back into this
Yeah.
is what life is, and you'll acclimate, and you'll just make it happen. And that is exactly what happened.
Well, how long did it last?
I'm 18 months. So I stayed in that job about 5 more months. And along the way, my husband was just like, maybe you should do something different. And I said, well, maybe, maybe we should just move. And that's when we moved out to California and had a wonderful time living in San Francisco. But that was the impetus for us. I was just like, let's just leave this company. Let's just leave the Midwest. Let's
Yeah.
leave manufacturing. I want to change industries. I want to do something completely different. We shook everything up. But
So may I ask you, were you more frightened or more excited? Or
excited.
relieved?
I was not frightened at all. And the funny thing, Bonnie, the just desserts in all of this is as I turned in my notice to my boss, and he was like, "You're so valuable. Please don't leave. You come so far." So now he's giving me all of the,
Oh
and
my gosh.
accolade kind of thing. But you were in the hospital, your body is shutting down. For me, it was a mental kind of breakdown.
Oh,
But
sure.
I knew, and I did it anyway. I literally thought to myself, you are going to move past this point where you recognize how bad this is for you, and it's just going to become your habit again.
Well, there's so much to say about this. It is imperative that we not forget the lessons of the pandemic, which were that if it taught us anything, we know that life can change in a heartbeat. We had people getting sick and dying, and then we saw people, thinking, you know what, the price I'm paying is too high to stay living in a place I don't want to live anymore, to be in a job I don't want to be in anymore. And we started asking ourselves some really hard questions about, why am I doing this? And, you said it yourself, it was a habit. Probably a piece of you felt grateful for the job, maybe a little worried you couldn't get another one. There's all kinds of things the story we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And sometimes, as in my case, I did not have a supportive partner at home who, had my back. It sounds like you're still in this marriage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it didn't, but when burnout happens and when people are so unhappy at their jobs, sometimes it does spill over into their home life, and it can be destructive. So, we're not in this thing alone, are we? We have people, friends, family in our orbit. And something interesting just happened yesterday around this subject that I heard from a 20-something young woman who is fired up to be a celebrity assistant, the world that I moved in for 25 years. And she told me that she is ready to give up her life for this job, for a celebrity. And I am having a conversation with her because I need to give her a heads up that she's not going to feel that way in 5 years, maybe less. I believe women need to help other women to succeed.
I agree.
And that's part of the reason I know you're doing this podcast, which is such a great service. What is the reason we're here, if not for others to benefit from our hard-earned experience, that we learned through burn, that I learned through landing in the hospital with double pneumonia. I know of an assistant who landed in a wheelchair because of the stress and burnout. And that's no joke. And that is 100% true story. It's not.
So I want to take you back in. I want to take you back into your story, right? Because you have double pneumonia. You have this sort of awakening moment that happens. And I don't know about other people, but I have the assumption that wealthy people and Hollywood starlets are very demanding people, and they sort of expect white glove service in which means like everybody is subjugating to them at all times. I can't say that that's Olympia. I don't know her, but that's
a broad generalization. But usually when people are wealthy and famous, they're not used to hearing the word no. Let me tell you that.
There you go.
Olympia would say things like,
if
you tell me no, Bonnie, I'll believe you, but I want to understand that you've done everything you can to get me to a yes. So,
so there's a little pressure with that. So how do you walk back? How do you walk out of double pneumonia and walk back in? What are you renegotiating with yourself? And what are you renegotiating with your employer?
Right. We did have a conversation after I got back. And, I had already been working with Olympia about 6 years at the time. And here's the thing. She wanted me to have a vacation. She wanted me to get rest. Looking back, I have to take on a large part of the responsibility. I put that burden on me. I didn't accommodate for backup for while I was gone. We could have had someone sit in my seat for those 4 days and answer phones and just take some of the work away from me rather than have everything waiting for me when I got back. So we did have a conversation when I got back about the next vacation and what that was going to look like, and that I actually was going to take it. In the world of famous and wealthy people, their lives are at a different pace than normal folks, I have to say. And I know plenty of celebrity assistants. It just is at a different pace. And therefore, everything that they need and want can be accomplished. It just can't necessarily be accomplished by one person. They can have 24/7 coverage. Absolutely. Just needs 3 people.
If you look back to your younger self, Bonnie, at what point do you think this internal narrative that you must prove yourself indispensable, how did that form inside of you? Because I believe you brought that to this job, not that you...
Well, I think we are socialized as young women to seek approval and want to be liked, and we feel grateful for jobs, and we take less money because we're so grateful to have the jobs. And again, I'm generalizing, but I spend my life in rooms of mostly women, and I hear their stories all over the world, and this is true. That the story we tell ourselves is that we need to make ourselves indispensable so that we don't get fired, so that we're considered better than everybody else. And it was ridiculous that I was worried about, getting fired or getting in trouble. That's a young person's point of view, that we need training, we need mentoring as women to understand the truth of our own value. Because when we see our own value and we're surrounded by people who support us to know that value and to not see it as bragging or being cocky or being full of ourselves, but rather it's the truth. It's the truth that you bring talents and skills to the table that are valuable and worth a fair compensation, and you're worth taking a vacation and don't have to worry that when you get back from vacation, you're going to get fired or be in trouble, or, you know, you had a manager who didn't like you. And then, you know, what was that gaslighting about saying, oh, we're going to miss you? Like,
right.
What are these games? The game playing is dangerous. So I got sucked in to that socialization, but over time, and I can remember being in my 20s and feeling like that young woman who wrote to me who wants my help. Well, she's going to get an earful when we talk, because, you know, you don't have the energy in your 30s and your 40s that you do in your 20s. And yes, do you have to pay your dues? Of course you do, but not working 24/7, 14-hour days. We all know what it is to do that, but on a short-term basis, it's not sustainable. And that's what I found out, because if you don't decide the right decision, then your body calls the shots. And in my case, my body called the shot. It said, no, you're stopping.
The one time in my life when I really came the closest to burnout and significant health issues was actually in my job as mother. In parenting my kids, in being the mother in that relationship. The story that I told myself was that I wanted to do better and give more to my kids than my parents were able to give me. They were working, blue class working people, and they had my dad, he worked all day and farmed with his brother to grow food and stuff that, you know, which was wonderful. I mean, we have fresh food to eat, but at the same time, he wasn't around a lot, you know? And so my parents worked really, really hard. And there were a lot of no's in our household for a variety of reasons, including that they just didn't have time to do certain things. Mm-hmm. And so this story that I was telling myself was that I was going to give my kids more things. They were going to be able to do more activities, you know, all of that kind of thing. But what I trained them is, unfortunately, in my choices, what I trained them was that it didn't matter how inconvenient it was for me. I would inconvenience myself. I would find a way to make it happen for them. So they could ask for these last minute things, and I would throw out my plans and rush around. And my husband, every time he was be like, heck no, like that makes no sense. I'm not doing that. And I'm over here like, I can do it. I can figure it out. And then I get in the middle of all the chaos of trying to throw my day apart. Right. And I'm so resentful and I'm so angry and I'm so, you know, it's, you know.
And on top of it, the kids don't thank you for it.
Yes. And they don't thank you, but I trained them. I mean, part of it is I taught them that was okay.
Right.
And I think about that with employers as well. I think that as employers, we have a certain responsibility and duty of care.
Yes.
To really think about the impact of what we are asking of others.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how you see that from your seat.
The whole motherhood piece.
No, the piece about the duty of care of any employer, really understanding before you just ask, I need you to do this, this, and this, like really thinking about what's all the other stuff I've already asked them to do. How much time is there left in a day?
Right.
Or what?
So, the work situation has gotten more complicated in the aftermath of the pandemic, because all of a sudden people were working in ways that they never in a million years thought that they would be working at home. In 5 minutes, they were told you have to create a home office and you have to work remotely. And some people were frightened by it, and others were like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I've been waiting for this my entire life. And I just read an article today how there are some Gen Zers going to their managers right now in 2025 and almost demanding a 4-day work week. And you've got CEOs on Wall Street and other kinds of companies, and they're saying, no, our company is a 5-day-a-week company, and that is our structure. And if that is what you want, this is your job. And if you don't, please feel free to look for another job. There is a conflict right now in terms of how much obligation do employers have for care. What I believe is vitally important is there must be a baseline of professionalism and respect between employers and employees. There's far too many toxic work environments going on right now. There's too much bullying. There's still sexual harassment happening. So that's the polar opposite of caring for people. Yes. When you're actually abusing your people. But then there was the question of these same CEOs about, well, what's our obligation for work-life balance? And their response was, the employee is responsible for their own work-life balance. And I have to say that statement took me up short, because I realized I had a part to play in my own work-life balance. What you're asking, Rita, is about company culture. What kind of culture are we espousing in the day-to-day? Is part of the culture a remote hybrid model? And how are we setting expectations? Frankly, I think part of care is a baseline of respect, professionalism, and clear expectations. There's far too many staff walking around who are not totally clear on what's expected of them. And if that's the case, then that's the reason there's all this confusion and conflict happening. That puts the burden on leaders to be strong leaders and take the reins to set clear expectations. We are a 5-day-a-week company. This is the job description. And that's the obligation of an employer. If people end up being friends, that's a bonus, I think. The lines, though, have gotten blurry and confusing, given what we've all gone through over the last few years. It's not an easy answer to your question.
The thing that I see a lot of people talking about, like on LinkedIn, and I have experienced this at work as well, is if you are known as a performer, somebody that makes things happen, your plate just gets loaded up with more. So there's this almost a disparity that it's like people feel penalized for doing a good job, which makes them want to retract and do less because again, this burnout, this workload of stuff that's going on. I mean, every once in a while you want to look to the left and the right of you and know that the people on the other sides of you are rowing just as hard as you are, right?
And there's a lot of confusion around that because we're not necessarily seeing each other 5 days a week anymore. Not that we knew the answer to that 5 days a week either. What this requires, again, is strong leadership to set clear expectations and hold people accountable. From the staff side, my strong advice to every student I have is make sure you always have a written job description ready. When anybody says to you, so what is it that you're doing? What is it that you do anyway? You say, oh, I'll print it out for you right here. I'll be happy to send you a PDF right away. It is imperative that staff, especially in the remote hybrid environment, be ready to offer the metrics, the data around what is it that they are literally doing. And I am a big fan of being the one to go towards problems and to go above and beyond. I do believe the people who are not pulling their weight are the ones at the top of the list for getting downsized and laid off. And You don't read the news any day and not read about a company laying off a good number of people. AI is a factor here. So proving your value, not only on some days, but every day, I believe is a very smart strategy. And letting your managers know about it. And that means proving it, having it be in writing your job description and your, achievements. I saved this much money for the company. I supervised a team of 8. Like, we cannot expect managers and leaders to have all of that fresh and top of mind. So it's a kindness. It's respectful to have this in writing and ready to present.
So thank you, Sharon. Yes. So we're getting to a great spot here, which is some of the wisdom. So in my book, Show Up Positive, I talk about the little accountant inside of our heads, because we all do. We have this little accountant that's doing the math, and the math is the return matching or bettering the effort? Mm-hmm. And anytime there is a deficit, your little accountant is like sending off alarm bells, like danger, 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 right? So we titled this episode, when is the price too high? So when somebody's little accountant is going, danger, danger, the price is too high, you're paying a lot and not getting a lot back, a lot of value back out of here. Hopefully our listeners don't all end up in the hospital or, like you did to have this epiphany. But when they have this epiphany, what are 2 or 3 words of wisdom you would give to what should be their next plays that they take?
Their next move is to have the conversation. Far too many of my students come to me saying they're quitting their job because the price is too high and they can't handle it anymore. But they're quitting. The thing that gets me is they're quitting before they ever even have one conversation with the person they're having the problem with. Their managers need to know the issues. I can tell you there's too many things going unsaid in the workplace, important things. So if someone is thinking the price is too high, before you bail out and quit, have that difficult conversation. And it's about speaking up and finding your voice. And that takes courage and that takes confidence to do. And that's another reason why I do these podcasts and I coach and I teach. It's because we need to support people to do that. Olympia did that for me. It and others as well. It doesn't happen by magic, does it? I mean, you've
right.
had times in your life that you wish you'd said something. I urge people to have the gumption, to have the conversation, to document, to put it in writing, and to say, I have this issue. And I can tell you that unscientifically, 8 times out of 10, a manager is going to listen and say, we can do something about that. We can
especially when you're a high performer.
Yes.
One of the mistakes people make besides just walking away is they go into that conversation after they've started to decline in performance because of this narrative of frustration and anger and resentment that is building. But if you're a strong performer and you go to your boss and say, I got to tell you, you got to help me with this. This is becoming an issue for me. Yeah. They are going to be Johnny on the spot, ready to help because you're a star player for them. But when you start to let your star tarnish because your attitude is going south, it's going to be a much harder conversation. So doing that sooner. And just a little plug for the show, episode 1 with Karen Louse. She gave us a whole series of activities that you can do to ready yourself to speak up in any situation. So go back and re-listen to Karen in episode 1 to take Bonnie's first step. So first step is go have the conversation.
Yeah.
Step number 2, Bonnie, what else?
Step 2 is the answer to what the questions you're asking to your manager will tell you a great deal and about do you stay or do you go? And then it's about using your mentors and really thinking long and hard about what is it that you really want. And that's a team sport. Confidence is a team sport. That's why it's so vital to have partners, friends who have no other agenda, at least a few of them who have no other agenda other than that they want you to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. And that is to make a plan. Sometimes that means getting some extra training in something that you really want to do. We don't stay in the same spot. You know, I worked with Olympia for 25 years. I was a different person in year 1 than I was in year 10 versus 15, 20, 25. We don't stand still. Our energy changes, our interests change. What we want for ourselves, you know, are we making the money that we need to make? Are we living in the place we want to live in? Are we surrounding ourselves with the people we want to be surrounded by? And those are hard questions to ask, but it does bear fruit to think ahead. I'll tell you, laying there in the hospital and then hanging out in that hotel room alone for those 2 days gave me quite a lot of time to think about how I wanted my life to look going forward.
Well, and I think that is important. No manager loves somebody that comes and just dumps a problem on the table. Most managers, if you're going to go have the conversation, you need to have done your diligence about what do you want, what are you committed to,
Yes.
and what are you asking to step back from, or what are you asking the shift to be, and what thoughts and ideas do you bring about how to accomplish that?
Right.
So you have to have invested some time. You may not have, and you shouldn't have all the answers. You don't want it to be a closed conversation either. You want there to fill room that you're collaborating together. It's the team sport part of it, right? Like,
indeed,
we need to understand that we share a commitment. And that's the beautiful thing. You do share commitment to a set of outcomes. And now it's just a matter of negotiating some of the how a little bit. And
it's not an ultimatum. It's not a threat. It's a conversation that, and the best managers want that. They want to put heads together and say, all right, how are we going to approach this? This is the issue. What are our choices? What are our options?
I've had clients that will do things like say, look, it is really important to me that I get my kids off the bus and we have family dinner together, but I am more than happy if you will let me leave at this time. I am more than happy to get back on my computer at 8:00 and finish up the work of the day and make sure that everything that I need to do. But if I can schedule all my communication with clients and stuff up, prior to this time, have this break, and look, if you're a good performer, a lot of times they will work with you, but you also have to be flexible. They also know there are times when they're not going to meet their kids at the bus stop because they have got to be at work for a client meeting that couldn't get scheduled around their schedule. So, when everybody is willing to participate and work together.
It feels like a risk, though. It feels like a big, big risk, especially for women, to be that vulnerable about what they need. And so that's why it's vital to understand your value in the organization and to risk revealing the truth about the situation rather than suffer in silence. And what this also requires is solid communication between leaders and staff. And unfortunately, a lot of leaders have never been trained to have these kinds of conversations. And I'm eager.
Preach, Bonnie, preach. We have fallen out of, we have fallen short for new leaders in terms of really prepping them for this. But I love what Sharon is saying. Like, one of the things that you can do for yourself is just maintaining communication. Don't wait for your boss to come to you. Go to your boss, maintain some one-on-one communication with them so that it doesn't feel awkward and weird that,
But, that's bumping up against the socialization and how it was for so many years. It used to be, managers up on high, preaching or, raining down information to the staff. And it's no longer that way. Given, the workplace really was thrown up into the air like a deck of cards during the pandemic, and it changed everything. So those staff who are now open to what you just described about, reversing it, having staff go to leaders rather than the other way around, it represents a change in the system.
Yes.
But a change is needed for sure.
Well, Bonnie, I wish we could talk longer, but I want to honor your time, and I want to honor our commitment to brief episodes for all the listeners. Sharon, so lovely to have you in the comments. Thank you. You posted Bonnie's TED Talk. So Bonnie Low-Kramen, The Real Reasons People Quit. Great. Yeah, excellent TED Talk. Go and check that out. And of course, Bonnie's book, Staff Matters. It's available on Amazon.
Yes.
So I encourage you to get her book as well. Any final words that you want to share with our listeners before we close, Bonnie?
Yeah, I want to thank your listeners who are listening live and who are listening to the recording, because chances are in your work life, you will have some burnout, I suspect. And I want to give you the benefit of many decades of work, and that is the work will be there tomorrow. I would try to fool myself and think, well, if I work till 10 o'clock tonight, my to-do list will be smaller tomorrow, and I'll be able to leave early. And years go by, and that list gets big every single day. So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I love that. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it is powered by AI. If you are not figuring out which AI tools can help you be more efficient in your job, can save you time. Look, you don't have to let it write an email for you, but it can give you a draft that you can polish up. Right. Trust me, that is way faster, right? If you're not using Grammarly to check your grammar and your spelling for you automatically, like there are so many little shortcuts. So the other thing to remember in this that I will share with you is AI is not your enemy. AI is your friend to smarter working. And so that smarter working is just, Bonnie just said, the to-do list is not going to get any less, but you can create time for yourself. AI is the one chance that you have to create a little more time, a little more breathing space for yourself. So if you are not prioritizing that as a part of your professional development right now, add it to the list. Go talk to your manager about courses and things that you can do that are going to enable you to get stronger and better. Learning AI doesn't have to be a side hustle. In many organizations, you can do that as a part of your professional development, and it will pay dividends.
Big time. Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, for being with us. I'm just reminding everybody we have 2 more episodes coming up this week. How exciting. On Wednesday, John Brooks, who is an entrepreneur and investor, is with us. He's going to tell us a story about showing up late in the gift that became. So is being late always bad? Not in John's world, and maybe not in your world either, but you got to go in with the right mindset when you show up late, not just letting your inner judge beat you up for being late. And then on Thursday, Nikki Lanier had to cancel her original time with us, but she is back on Thursday. Nikki is joining us. What time was that? Let's see, at 4:30 in the afternoon. And she's going to share her personal story as a mother in this episode about, do I listen to my fear? When you are in situations where your alarm bells are going off about fear, as a Black mother, This is something Nikki knows very well, and she's going to help us break it down and really recognize the story that we're telling ourselves and how we help ourselves and our loved ones navigate what can often be true fears, but we have to move forward despite them. And that's going to be an episode you don't want to miss. So come back this week. 2 more episodes. Can't wait to see you there. Thank you, Bonnie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us in the comments. Bye, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on The Story I'm Telling Myself. If you loved this episode, would you do us a big favor to help us reach a bigger audience? Simply subscribe to The Story I'm Telling Myself podcast and rate this episode and share it with a friend. Thank you for listening.